We're going to be using 1x6 cedar for the birdhouses. Some videos you may have watched show that they use cedar fence slats, which are a little bit thinner than the 1x6. They're about a 1/4 inch thinner, and that can be an issue if you're a beginner trying to get those nails and screws to connect it properly. So we're going to go with the full thickness of the 1x6, and our birds are worth it. I don't want my birds coming back in a few years saying I wasn't there for them, that I bought them the thin stuff. They didn't want the apartment downtown with the thin walls. They came out to the country for a reason. So we're going to stick with the good stuff. Whenever you get a board from the lumber yard, you cannot be guaranteed that it's square. We're going to square that off. Measure 8 inches over. Starting on the 1 inch mark, I'll measure to the 9. Knowing that I have a 5.5 inch piece of wood, I'm going to put a mark at 2 3/4, the halfway point. And then I'm going to use either a speed square or a framing square to draw my peak. Now I can cut this on the miter saw. And obviously I'm going to need a second one that looks just like this so I could trace this out onto the board once I have this one cut. And in my case today, I want to make 3 birdhouses, so I'm going to end up tracing 5 more. Okay, I have my 6 sides cut for my 3 birdhouses. I'm going to actually only focus on 2 of the sides for one of the birdhouses right now. What I want to do next is figure out how tall the sides need to be, the second 2 sides. This is a cut-off piece from what I just did, and I'm going to measure how long it is from the bottom to that point. 5 3/16. So I know I need 2 pieces at 5 3/16 for either side of that birdhouse. So I mark it 5 3/16, and I cut 2 for each birdhouse. Okay, I have all 4 of my sides cut for the birdhouse, but before I put these 4 sides together, I'm going to want to drill the hole that the birds go into. It'll be much easier to do it before it's put together. So I'll take one of the sides. I'm going to use this side because there's not a knot like there is on this one. It'll be easier to drill through this softer piece here. I'm going to measure 4 inches up. And again, half of 5.5 is 2 3/4. Make my little crisscross there so I know exactly where I want that drill bit to go. I'm only going to do this to one side of the birdhouse. I'm going to use a Forstner bit, 1 3/8. You don't want to go much bigger than 1 3/8 because you don't want predatory birds to get into the birdhouse. You only want the smaller birds to get in there. Whenever you drill, it's very important that you have a piece of scrap wood under what you are drilling. So as the drill goes through, it's not going to bust out the side and look really chipped up in the middle. Not that you'd be able to see it anyway in this case. So having that under there, making sure the point of the Forstner bit is right on the mark. Cedar is very soft and easy to drill through. I felt it go into that other piece, up just a little bit more. And there I have it. And it's a relatively clean drill on the inside as well. Okay, now the bird hole is drilled in one of the sides. I can start putting this together. I need some good wood glue, and you can use nails or screws, whatever you feel is handy. Screws are fine, nails are good enough. You don't have to go crazy on putting this together, especially when you're using glue as well. I want to keep the rough side towards the outside. I like the way that looks. So the easiest way to do this would be to set these 2 pieces up in preparation so you can set this down on here so it's relatively balanced before you start nailing it. But I do want to add my glue first. Always have a wet rag somewhat near you when you're doing this. Line up the bottoms. Make sure it's flush or even on the outside. Tack that first nail in. Checking again that it's still flush. Other side, the same. Flip it over. More glue. Take your time in making sure that it's lined up nice and straight. No rushing. And then wipe off any excess glue that came out. And there you have it. Now we're ready to focus on our top. Okay, now it's time for the roof. There's a few different ways to think about doing this, depending on where you're going to mount the birdhouse. So it's going to be on a pole, or you're going to screw it to a tree, a building. You're going to want to know that before you install the roof. What I've done is cut 2 pieces of cedar 9 inches long. That way they can overhang the birdhouse on both sides. A little bit here, a little bit here. Now if I plan on screwing this against a tree or a building, I would probably want to bring that up and keep the backside even or flush with each other, so it's easier to screw it to the building. You might want to shorten this up if that's the case. In my case, I'm putting it on a pole, a post, so I can have both sides overhang the same. I cut one at 9 inches and left it the exact same width of the 1x6 originally, but the second one I cut 3/4 of an inch off of the width, so when we put them together like this, they end up both being the same length. So I have another decision I can make here. I'm planning on painting some of these. If I wanted to paint the building a different color than the roof, it might be smarter to nail these 2 pieces together of the roof, paint them separately, and then later attach them to the building. If I'm just going to keep it natural and maybe use a water seal or a penetrating stain on it, the whole thing as one, I could probably just put it all together. I think I'm going to do 2 painted and 1 natural, so we can see how we would do that with both ways. So in this case, I would attach my side roof to the upper roof, knock over your glue, make as much mess as possible. Wipe off that excess glue, and now I can easily center it on the house by putting my nails in that way. Or again, if I plan on painting these, I could paint this piece maybe black or gray, I could paint the body a different color, and then later come back and attach the 2. Either way is fine, depending on which direction you want to go with the house. Okay, I've assembled all of the birdhouses up to the point I want to anyway. I've attached the roof with nails and glue to the birdhouse I want to keep natural cedar. The other two, which I intend to paint, I'm not attaching the roofs quite yet. The other thing, before we start painting and finishing, I also want to think about the bottom. There's many ways to do the bottom. I'm going to create a platform for the bottom that extends out the front, kind of like a little porch, if you will, and keep it flush on the back. On the natural one, I'm going to attach it right away. On the other two, I'm going to paint them separately because they might be different colors than the body and the roof. So I want to paint everything first and then attach them later. And before I start varnishing, painting, whatever I'm going to do to finish these projects up, I want to fill my nail holes. The best way, or the easiest way, is to use sawdust that you've accumulated through all your cuts. Take a little bit of glue, mix them together, and fill the holes that way instead of purchasing wood filler at the hardware store. You're going to get an exact color match this way, especially if you're leaving it natural. It's going to be messy, but you just smush that sawdust into those nail holes. And then later we can just do a very, very light sand to clean them up. Again, I don't want to take the roughness off the cedar. That's the look I'm going for, is that rough sawn look. So you don't want to take that off when you end up sanding this. And continue that through all the nail holes. Make sure when you're sanding, you're going to get any chips or splinters off of the edges, kind of round off the corners a little bit. Doesn't have to be too perfect, too crazy, but you do want the big chips and splinters taken out of there, especially around the bird hole, around the porch area. If you left a big 2x2 shard on your front porch, you'd probably hear about it as well. Okay, I have sanded, filled my nail holes and sanded everything relatively well. The only thing left as far as construction and putting some other stuff together is to drill some holes underneath the bird hole, 3/8 of an inch to accept a dowel for the perch. I'm not going to put that in yet, simply because it's going to be easier to paint or put water seal on without having to brush around the perch. So we'll do that later. With the two that I'm going to paint, it's very important that you prime first. If you do not prime the bare wood, the paint that you choose will not stick and will peel off very quickly. So next I'm going to set myself up to prime the two, and I'm going to set this one aside. Okay, everything's painted and finished. I have done a Halloween one, a patriotic one, and again I left one natural. I have also put finish on these perches that I've cut about 2.5 inches long. It's up to you how long you want to make those. I'm going to put them into the 3/8 holes that I drilled, about 1 inch below the bird perch. It's going to put a little glue in each hole. Again, not a crazy amount. Make sure it's nice and straight in there. Kind of twist it as you put it in so the glue goes around the whole dowel. Okay, now I decided that I'm going to put this one on a post, so I don't have to do anything else but mount that to the post. But these two, I've decided I'm going to hang them from a wire from a tree limb. So what I'm going to do is drill a small pilot hole in the top of both of them. Be careful right at the peak. And then I'm going to use these eyelets that'll help me attach any wire that I choose to use to hang it from the tree. And as long as you have that pilot hole drilled, the cedar is very soft and you should not need any tool. It should just be a matter of twisting these in deep enough so they hold. And now they're ready to hang. I'll wait and hang this when it's the season. This one, since it's summer, it's ready to go, and this one can be obviously put up whenever. And so these two will go up today. This one I'm going to save.